It's important for me, the physical act of painting. The physical act of painting is just as important as the mental act. And the mental act, of course, is what's in my mind and what I want to do. And I spend a great deal of the day with that in my mind.
Hey, Dick, how you doing?
Good. I just keep working on my artwork, and that's what I do.
Hey, I do the same thing too. You know how it is. We just keep doing what we're doing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's an addiction. We have to get that. We have to satisfy the addiction.
We do. We have to do it in some way, shape, or form. Now, I just want to let the audience know, you are Dick Crispo. You are, you've made a lot of artwork over the years. How long would you say you've been making art?
Since I was 11, and I'm 78 now.
Oh, awesome. There you go. And just to let our audience know, my name is Rene. I am also an artist. I largely work digitally these days, but I have also done a lot of traditional artwork like what Dick's going to talk about. I've done watercolors, gouache, oils, acrylics, charcoal, pencil, pen and ink, brush, all that stuff. But Dick has really done a lot of other things with different mediums as well. We're going to talk about watercolor and what he's doing today. But I know starting out very young, you had your book that we published last year that talked really about, your start and what you did as a kid, what got you interested in art as a kid. Maybe you let our audience know, just starting out, how did you get started in artwork? I think it started with stained glass, right?
Yeah, I was, when I was a little kid in in Greenwich, Connecticut, in the New York metropolitan area. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And we had stained glass windows on the house, and they went up the staircase. The windows went up the staircase, so these beautiful colors came through the stained glass. And as a little kid, I used to watch a guy come on Fridays to clean the glass, and I'd just see the colors pouring through the glass. And that still to this day has affected my artwork.
That's right, because a lot of the paintings that we've been showing online on social media, your website and your blog, they almost could be like it's stained glass if you just look at them from afar. So I think that's amazing. Stained glass
is a medium that I only made one of, but I feel it's what I relate to when I see it. It just excites me. And it takes me back to my early childhood when I was 4 and 5 years old, sitting on the steps going up to the bedrooms. And it's a magic. It's the magic of color and light. And I never get tired of color or light. And I spend every day either drawing or painting and drawing. But in the end, when I paint, it's the color that has to come through and come through in a unique way according to the different mediums that I use. And I've used all mediums like yourself have done. I find myself in watercolor to be in a quiet, more meditative medium, a medium that's obviously transparent and very wet. Wet is the key to it. And because I say watercolor, wet, water. And I think it explains itself. For years, I taught watercolor and oils and acrylics and all. But for people to understand that I'm in the series that I'm doing, I'm having a show in May, opening at the Carmel Art Association in Carmel. It's the oldest gallery in Carmel on Dolores between 5th and 6th.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. And we'll be sure to promote that online as well. So this is in May now. Is that going to be strictly it'll
be the watercolors on the 300-pound Arches rough paper.
Oh, that's right.
There'll be one. These are made single sheets since 1714. The Arches French company has been making them since then. So I think they know what they're doing about making paper for watercolor.
Oh, they make a great.
So the 300-pound paper are made individually, so it has 4 decal edges, and rather than matting it, the paintings, because you lose the decal edge, they're going to float in the frame. And that's
Nice.
very important.
Nice.
Is the floating process in the
So-
frame.
So if I can, Dick, is that a one-man show or are you
It's
part
a
of it?
one-man show.
Okay, so give that date again when we can. Is
This'll
that when
be-
it opens?
This opens in the first Saturday in May
Okay.
at the Carmel Art Association in downtown Carmel on Dolores between 5th and 6th.
Okay, so the first Saturday in May, I show that as being, let's see, that is May the 4th is what it looks like. Unless my calendar's wrong. So the first Saturday in May, and that's going to run like a couple of weeks.
Okay, the show will be up all month,
Okay, great.
and there'll be an opening party, I think the second week, but I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, and we can post details of that in the show notes
Right.
here. So that'll be great. Well, awesome. So I like that. We'll definitely get out there and take a look and, take a look. Of course, I've been looking at all your artwork. I work on your website. I do a lot of your photography and we post it online. And every day I go there, when I do go there to your place, I get to see you working on these pieces. So talk about going back to when you were growing up, you talked about the glass, the light, and then how does that transition into going into pursuing art, even as a youngster?
When I was 11 years old, I had a painting in the window of Nancy's Artist Palette in Carmel. When we had moved, and when I was 10, we moved from the New York metropolitan area to Carmel, and I saw, and I was in this class where the painting was in the window, and I said, "This is what I want to do," and that's what I always wanted to do ever since. And so I say at 78, since I was 11, that's what I wanted to do. No questions asked. No saying, well, I think I'll do this or I think I'll do that. No, it's always got to be my artwork and artwork related. There was a period where I wanted to be a political cartoonist in the 8th grade, but that was it.
Wow.
But primarily, my whole life has been my art.
I get it. When you said you just saw, you had a painting and you saw that it was like almost like it was a calling and you just did it. It's like, for you said you wanted to be a political cartoonist. I'm not a political cartoonist, but I do comic books. So I'm a comic book artist.
Yeah.
In addition to painting. But I know when I saw my very first comic book from when I was like probably 10 or 11, I knew this was the artwork that triggered whatever was in me to create artists, because we're all artists. We have a calling, and some of us discover it when we're very young. People can find it after a career and they get into it when they're older. But, when we see that we have that calling, it's just like automatic, isn't it? And we never stop doing it.
Never. And I've had a lot of jobs to make it possible to keep doing my artwork, because I will not have a gallery telling me what to paint. I've had many galleries that I've shown in. Eventually it comes to the point where they say, "Oh, can you give me 10 of those only in different colors? Or can you give me 17? We have a list of people." No, I don't do that.
Wow. Okay.
And that's very important to me, that I am independent of the marketplace.
That's got to be a good feeling, because I personally have not been featured in a gallery. It's not kind of like my thing to do galleries. I think they're great. And with me doing comic books and doing more mass production, it's more trying to speak to the masses. And I know galleries bring people in, and it's probably a little bit more of an intimate, and especially if you're a gallery owner, you have a certain, I guess, clientele that are going to be looking at these paintings that you're looking to sell to. So when you go into a gallery and you have your own independently created artwork, is it that they say, "Hey, I like your work, I want to bring it in," or "I think what you're doing will fit with what we're trying to sell"?
It's important for any artist to understand that when you're going into a gallery, it's a business. The gallery is a business. They have to pay their rent. If they have employees, they have to give them commissions or salaries or both. So when for me, when I go in, it has to be it has to be that I have the right to change what I do. I'm not going to make the same painting over and over again. I will have an idea that stays with me, and I'll work on a series like these watercolors that are on the celebrating the 300-pound paper, and the very high quality watercolors, and the rough texture of the paper with the watercolor give it kind of a fresco feeling to it.
Nice.
For me, that's what's happening now. I can't tell you what I'm going to be doing 10 months from now or 10 days from now. But
that's
right
right
now, my show that's going to be my show. And every time I have a particular direction that I'm going in, I like to do a show of it. And in the case of the Carmel Art Association, I do one about every 2 or 3 years. I let all members have the chance. I was the youngest member of the Carmel Art Association ever elected. 15 out of 15 artists on the board, 11 have to vote for you. So it's very hard to get into. But the advantage of the Art Association is I can bring in what I want.
And that's important, isn't it? Because you definitely do your own work. I think
my work is my work.
Right. And you say you do work in a series, and I kind of want to touch upon that because I when we first started working together, me starting to, build your website and kind of chronicle your series of artwork. I remember we kind of got together. I think it was a little bit, was it during COVID? Mm-hmm. Or shortly, maybe I think it was shortly after you were doing these series of the side by side kind of front and center or front and side profiles. And that was my first real, when I started seeing you work in your studio there at your home. And I've seen when they were small, they were like 5x7, and then they got a little bit bigger. And then now you're working on these huge 30x40 pieces. You've done acrylic pieces. And by and large, I think that has led to is currently what we kind of think of your artwork and what you do. And we have you as, what do we call this? An abstract psychosocial artist.
I have to speak to the viewer. My work has to speak to the viewer. If it doesn't do that, then something is not working in the piece for me. Right. For the viewer, that's something else. But the important thing for me is when I used to do a lot of murals, and I did the longest indoor mural in the world at the time. That was a half a mile long inside Soledad Prison. Right.
Yeah, I remember seeing those pictures.
But that's important, that I'm speaking to the people. It's speaking to the viewer. And
I think that's fantastic, Dick. I think it's amazing because it shows really that beyond the paintings, which is, it's your work, there's more depth to that. And I know that you've worked in the field of psychology as well. And talk about that with regards to what you did in that arena and then how it carries through to your art.
I spent a lot of time when I was a kid in therapy. And I spent a lot of time not only in therapy, but also getting trained later. And I worked in halfway houses and with the schizophrenic and the psychotic and all. And I also worked in juvenile probation art programs and art programs and different. But when I do my work, my artwork, it's something that I have to do every day. If I don't do it every day, it's not a good day. It's just not a complete day if I don't do it. So no matter what I'm doing as a job, I still have to do my artwork. I ran the art programs at Soledad, where my main office was, and at Folsom Prison, and at the psych ward at Vacaville.
Wow, that's
So it's
pretty.
always there's always that social commitment somewhere in my work that may be psychological, maybe the feeling, even if it's abstract and there's an abstracted mood, a particular mood. I'm not satisfied with just making decorations. I don't make decorations. I'm not interested in decorating somebody's house over their sofa. I'm interested in them looking at the work and being able to kind of have a conversation with the painting.
Yeah, that's important, I think, especially for the type of work that you are doing, because so much of it comes from that background that you have of what you just mentioned, working, in these different, whether they're facilities or halfway houses. And then you get to also know the people. Now, I know you've also traveled extensively, immersing yourself in different cultures from Mexico to overseas.
Yeah, I had an Aunt Dorothy whose photo is right behind me here.
That's right. Right.
And this is when she was living in Havana, and Castro's men were just taking over the city, and they came and took over her salon. And so she was an old veteran of many coups and stuff. She didn't know what it was like, but she came out and greeted the guys and had her picture taken with the gun, holding the gun, and had given the keys to the place to her maid. But she got me very interested in Latin America. And also my family has been in the produce business for many years. And so I was familiar with that side of the farm labor and all that. And I worked with Chavez on that farm labor. But what I'm talking about is the Latin American cultures that I really relate to. And so I was very fortunate to get a position for a while with the State Department as American Cultural Specialist to Latin America. And I traveled all over the poorest countries that qualified for the program, the AID programs. And, the way we call foreign aid was then, it was really the culture. This was my part of it, was the cultural part, where like if you're the theater in Guatemala City, for example, the designer of the kind of a science fiction building built when President Kennedy was giving money to Central America. They didn't have any lights. Now here you got this big, beautiful theater, but you don't have the money for lights. So I got them lights. What do you need? What does the art school need in Bolivia? You need paper, you need ink, you need this, you need that, so on. And I was in 2 civil wars in Latin America, twice in Nicaragua, and then I was in the El Salvadorian Civil War.
Wow. So was this just a matter of you being over there teaching and these wars break out?
And I happened to fit in, and that's what was going on in those countries. And they needed I wasn't interested in taking sides. I said, I'm here as an artist. I'm not here but I was, of course, representing the United States because I was with the State Department. But on the other hand, and for example, in Nicaragua, they had a parade down with imperialism, and I was sitting there, but it was supposed to start at 10 o'clock. But I wasn't the only one that had a watch. The Sandinistas didn't have a watch. I had a watch. So they asked me, what time is it now? Okay. Yeah, I said, you're a little late getting started here, but you're close enough to 10 o'clock.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Imagine if you hadn't been there, Dick. Wow.
Yeah. So I have pictures of the parade that was against me, quote, I'm the United States, the imperialist, and I'm the one that's there. But I'm also the one that had to give them the time to start it.
No, that's quite a story. Yeah. And I'm sure you've got a lot more of these similar stories from your travels there and teaching. Now, I'd like to talk about Mexico, because you have, I think, a special affinity for the country and the land and the people. We did a chapter of it in your book. You even would go down there, right? And
I was going down there very early, and I love pre-Columbian art, and I was studying pre-Columbian art, and I went to a lot of ruins. This is back in the early 70s, very early 70s, and 60s and late 60s. Anyway, we go down there to parts of the Chiapas, the Mayan, study the Mayan sites. And I was studying in Oaxaca in studying the Zebotec, Mixtec cultures. And
now, was this all personal study or part of?
Right.
Okay.
And this was Monte Alban, and later I taught classes in it, art history classes, because I taught all forms of art history from the Renaissance to the modern, to the Egyptian to Giotto, that kind of stuff. But when I was really doing something that I could have a real personal connection to, it was in the pre-Columbian. So many of my faces have a pre-Columbian feeling to them, and especially in this series that I'm doing with the watercolors, because I go back to the Mayan, some of the Mayan forms, and the particular noses, for example, of the Mayan people. And I may use that. I may use a wider mouth than some cultures may have. But that's the problem. This part. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to make them Mayan. It's just that's what there's a sculptural feeling. That's what I use. I'm always talking to the people about something. I want a conversation with my art.
Yeah, and a lot of times that could be the person just having their own conversation, depending what's going on with their life. And a painting like such as yours just gives people, I think, a moment to pause and just maybe kind of relax for a little bit. And I think that's one of the beauties of your artwork is, for me, myself, I'm a very representational type of artist. You've seen my work, Dick. But I really do have also, when I see your work, I see a lot that I really enjoy getting into, because it's a different way of looking at space, color, form, value, negative space, and line that I don't see in my world, and that I'm very drawn to. Whether you're talking about your techniques, or the paper, or the types of brushes you're using, I think it's all amazing. And what you do that I think is really, really cool is, from my perspective, is that you produce so much work. Like you make a lot of paintings. How do you have all the time in the world to do it now, but you just crank out paintings after paintings. And a lot of them, I think some of them are studies for larger pieces. What is your goal nowadays with creating the artwork from a personal perspective? Like, you want to sell paintings and do things like that and be in shows, but right now, when you get up in the morning every day and you've got 2 or 3 paintings you're doing, how do you attack them with such efficiency, and you move fast? And I show up to your place and there's like 5 or 10 new paintings.
It's important for me, the physical act of painting. The physical act of painting is just as important as the mental act. And the mental act, of course, is what's in my mind and what I want to do. And I spend a great deal of the day with that in my mind. And then it comes time for the physical act to do it. And when I used to have students, and they would say, well, how do I become an artist? I said, you get up in the morning and you do the work. It's no mystery, folks. It's not, don't wait for the great sky goddess to come down upon you, or the great sky god, whatever. Don't get yourself tied up in that stuff. Just do it, and it comes. And the more you do, the more it comes. That's true. That's a very important message I want to give to art students. You do it. You don't say, well, I'm going to do this someday. No, it's not someday. What are you doing today? Not someday.
That's right. Because we need to do the work. Even when you are not feeling it, or you're feeling cold. And I get that, because there's times maybe when you're trying to force something and it's not worth forcing and you have to walk away from it. But you're right. At the end of the day, you do the work. You do the work. But in the work, part of the work is walking away from it if it's not going right. So then you come back to it
That's the difference. You come back to it.
Right. And I know I've been to your place a few times and you're working on a piece and I think it might be done. Or sometimes you'll say, yeah, I'm not sure if it's done yet because I think the painting is going to tell me.
The painting will tell me when it's done. I don't decide. The painting decides.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach to have because then you're having your own conversation with the painting, you know, as the creator.
If I don't have a conversation with the painting, how do I expect other people to have a conversation with it?
That's right. Right. Fast. I think that's tremendous. Tremendous.
One of the things too also that I my connection to Latin America is that I spent a lot of time at for example, one of my favorite museums in the world, the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, and okay. I met the architect that designed it and put it together. And there I can go all over Mexico in one building, and a beautiful building, and which got a lot of awards for the building itself. But to also for me to connect. I have a lot of books on the technical side of watercolor, the technical side of oil painting, the technical side of acrylic. Drawing. I taught life drawing for 21 years. I taught outdoor painting for 20 some odd years. You can't. I can't do it and not talk about it. Not be able to say this is what I do, and that's in my work and in my life.
Yeah, the artwork becomes an extension of ourselves as artists, and it's something that if we're not doing it, we're probably thinking about it when we're eating or when we're looking at other books, like you're saying. I know for myself, like when I see really great, fantastic artwork, I get inspired, and I want to do something like that. You know, who inspires you with your work? I mean, through the years, or when you go out there, are there things you look at, the nature, obviously people, but are you inspired by anything particular these days?
Well, when I taught outdoor painting, it had to be in a place that I knew and that I felt. Mm-hmm. In other words, I had a connection to it. It's not, I just don't go out there to paint it. Even though it was a teaching in the class. And most of the things in the book are really demonstrations of painting, because I'm not by nature a nature painter. I love nature, grew up in a beautiful place, obviously. And a lot of those paintings are influenced by Robinson Jeffers, the famous poet that lived in Carmel and built Tor House. It's important for me to that philosophical connection, but it's important that I have that connection with Jeffers in those paintings. But to say to my students, I want you to understand Jeffers. No, I don't really understand Jeffers as much as I can understand what he was inspired by. I may go out and paint outdoors 2 years from now, but I certainly don't have that in me. But it's part of me because I grew up in a beautiful place.
And by that you mean here on the peninsula, right?
Yeah.
And even back east, right? You were
Both of the beautiful places. Both places are beautiful. Very lucky to have that beautiful connection with that nature gives us.
For sure, especially here on the Monterey Peninsula right now. This is where I'm in Monterey, you're in Monterey. I think we're a few blocks from each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. We do live in probably one of the most beautiful places here. Certainly on the peninsula, but in the world, I think you say Monterey, and a lot of people will Monterey, California, they'll know where that is. So yeah, there's a lot. And you mentioned that you're not necessarily, if I understand it, you're not necessarily a landscape painter, but I know you have a series of paintings like the rhythm, in the trees and in nature.
All the best composing, I think, is composed by nature, and we have so much to learn. And the Greeks knew this, the Egyptians knew this, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, the people in pre-Columbian times, they all knew it, that nature was the ultimate composer, and they could learn how to compose. When I look at a tree, a lot of the trees that I see are so beautiful because we live in a place with a lot of beautiful trees. It's the best sculpture made.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't get better than that. Now, I could teach about Michelangelo. I could teach about Henry Moore and modernism. I could teach about the different styles of sculpture or something. But in the end, the tree wins.
Ultimately, you just look out at nature, right? Because there's so much there that you can draw from.
And I got all these trees right behind my house on Cannery Row. And people say, on Cannery Row, you have trees? The trees were there.
Yeah, you just got to look past all the shops and all the hotels and all the buildings. Yeah, the nature is still there.
Yeah, and the path is right there, and the trees are right on the path, folks.
Yeah.
I don't have to go miles and miles to find it. And I got 8 different kinds of trees behind my house that are just stunning.
Amazing. And pretty cool too when you think about it. We have so many influences or inspirations for our artwork. And I know for me, being mostly, like I said, a representational artist, like I do see the rhythms and the way the lines in the human body. And that's kind of been my sphere of like where I'm working in. And I just love drawing the figure or painting it or what have you. But yeah, these lines exist in nature, these rhythms. And as artists, I think we're drawn to that, and we want to infuse our influences, whatever we're doing from day to day outside of art, and it becomes part of what we put on the canvas or the watercolor paper, right?
Right. And what I used to always tell my students when we were out painting, I said, the limb of the tree is the arm of the tree. And that's why we call our arms limbs. And the tree has limbs because it's really the same thing.
That's awesome. That is cool. Well, hey, listen, Dick, I think this has been a pretty good introduction to Mr. Dick Crispo, the artist and the person. I think today, what is it? It's a Saturday. I think this will go, we'll probably put this up on your YouTube in a day or so. But I think I'm inspired to go make some art, at least. Hey,
go make some art. And you know what? Have a good time with it.
Absolutely.
And a good conversation with it.
Absolutely. Don't get too much in your own way, right? Do the work, step away from it, come back to it.
And remember, in the end, the piece will decide, not you. Whether it's graphic or it's oil painting or watercolor or computer graphics, it doesn't matter. It will tell you.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, Dick, this has been great. We're going to just mention your show coming up again. I have it here as May the 4th at the Carmel Art Association. It's a one-man show. It's going to be running for at least a month, I think. Right. And the second week's going to be like a party or like a kickoff party or. Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Well, until the next episode, sir, we will chat. And then to all our listeners or to those of you logging in, watching this, have a great time painting, get into the art and remember, just do the work, right? Right. Awesome. Do the work. Awesome. All right, Dick. Until next time. Thank you.